Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and thanks to the Tamashii Nation's Human Cyborg Relations Department, I'm able to take a look at the Bandai and Sideshow Collectibles co-production in the 12-inch Perfect Model line, C-3PO. This project, spearheaded by Star Wars superfan and professional modeler Seiji Takahashi, set out to create the perfect 6-scale C-3PO replica using die-cast metal and Chogokin spirit. The included booklet offers a lot of details and insight into how this came to be, especially when read alongside the 2 blog posts on Bandai's site. Check the info box for links. It's a fun read. It doesn't take a Star Wars scholar to see the level of craftsmanship that's gone into the 12PM C-3PO, though if you are that hardcore, you'll likely appreciate the intense levels of screen accuracy present here. Every detail, symmetrical or asymmetrical, has been captured through Seiji Takahashi's rigorous porings over every photo source he could get his hands on, right down to bubblegum cards. The only visual quirk I've noticed from my more amateur Star Wars fanboy perspective is that the head sometimes seems a bit thinner than some of the moments it had on screen in the films. I believe this is an optical illusion brought about by its shape being all rounded and stuff, and it certainly doesn't take me out of the experience. Anyway, let's lay down the big bullet point. Almost every single shiny gold piece of this figure is rendered in fairly beefy die-cast metal. 12PM C-3PO's best moment is one that can't be captured on camera. The moment you pick the figure up out of the box is one of its best selling points, as you feel the sturdy weight of around 2 pounds of toy in your palm. This is die-cast at its best, used with passion and precise artistic license. I've long grown tired of the notion that zinc immediately improves a toy simply by being there, but this is how it's done, man! You might have also noticed a lack of fingerprints all over C-3PO's gold body. That's because I can't put any on there without really trying, like wiping my nose and, Anyway, the theory I saw on Collection DX is that this is probably an anodized coloration, which penetrates the metal and is highly resistant to surface damage. The last major detailings I want to point out are the wires in 3PO's midriff. Every individual cable is separately sculpted and installed, resulting in a fantastic layered visual that feels as high-end as it gets. Peering within the assembly will show that they're all connected to a pair of thin rings housed behind the upper body and waist plates. The instructions do point out that fiddling with them can break them, so don't yank on this droid's guts. Unless you're trying to be some scummy little Jawa or something. Houdini. 3PO's also got a few hand options in lieu of stuffing joints into his fingers. He starts off with some calmly flexed hands, which can be easily swapped for straight-fingered hands. I'll be honest, working in posable knuckles would have suited my own tastes more than a swap for this, but 12PM C-3PO does put its aesthetics first. The other pair of hands are curled up a bit more and designed to hold his one handheld accessory, the comlink that he used to almost murder all of the protagonists in A New Hope's trash compactor scene. The little cylinder fits in snugly, though since the hands are one of the toy's few plastic-based gold components, I worry a little bit about the finish being scratched up over time if you keep pulling this little thing in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, etc. 3PO's other accessory is his restraining bolt, which magnetically attaches to a specific point on his chest. The connection is secure, but not too tight so as to protect his shininess. This is a bit of a light accessory count, though at the same time, C-3PO is not really known for carrying things around. The low accessory count might also be because this dude has a pair of watch batteries in his head. They come pre-installed, which is friendly, and the access point is contained within. By the way, when I pull this backplate off, it comes off super easy. It's kind of fun, actually. It makes that wonderful clicky noise. This thing also could show you just how thick the die-cast is on this guy, as an example. Maybe it's thicker here, I don't know, but look at this. This is like, the black parts are plastic, everything else is solid metal. It's about the weight of an action figure in and of itself. And terrifying C-3PO has a switch in the back of his head. There's also a plastic tab back there that you yank out, and I tried to put it back in to preserve the experience, and instead I just kind of knocked my camera around. So we flip that little switch, and pow! Look into the face of darkness. Let me just do that one more time for funsies. I forgot how switches work. Ah, yes. Now, that's kind of fun. I'm glad that the switch is contained inside the head, though that means you can't, reenact his eyes turning on without disassembling him slightly. And it looks really cool. The lights in there are very white, maybe slightly blue. It's kind of hard to get across in film very easily. They just kind of look white. and I'm not sure how well this will come across unless I start messing with my exposure, but the way that the light is projected in there is very similar to the films. There are 3 little holes in each optic that allow the light to go into the eye cavities, and I believe that's the same way it worked on the actual suit. So there's some more of that crazy suit accuracy for you. Seiji Takahashi is a visionary, and I'm kind of bummed he's contained to Star Wars, because I'd love to see him doing crazy-ass stuff like this on other properties. Anyway, I should also mention that there's an included battery tool to get the watch batteries out of 3PO's head once they're dead. That's just nice. That's friendly. That means I don't have to fashion my own tool out of paper clips and spit and stuff. Let's talk poseability and start off by looking at C-3PO's head. It's on a ball joint with a very good range of motion. Yeah, you can look around, you can look worried, you can look up and down, you can be all like, what? If you go down to his torso, he's got a ball joint in his ab and another ball joint at his waist. The top joint really is the one that's in charge here. It's got the biggest range of motion, while the one on the bottom moves more so in support of the one on the top. One other thing that's worth noting at this point is that, in part thanks to that motion, there's always a really nice line in his body. And if you look at him from top to bottom, he's very much got this natural S-curve to his posture that Anthony Daniels had in the movies. This was actually a design-critical element that Seiji Takahashi insisted upon in the sculpt of this guy. Going into his arms, we can also start to talk about how this dude's poseability is more or less that of the suit that Anthony Daniels wore. There's a ratchet joint in here, there's a little bit of outward motion and swivel in the pauldron here, and this is all a little bit limited because the suit Anthony Daniels wore was a little bit limited, and that's going to be more of a factor once we go below the waist. But let's talk about something amazing, which is the elbows. This is apparently the first time it's ever been done in a toy, but look at those pistons, they actually work. There's a whole lot of mechanism going on here. They slide and push in and out. The only thing I've found about these is sometimes they can get a little bit stuck. Like, they work like this, but sometimes you'll push it up, and then when you push it down, this part might get stuck in there and just start pushing into that part instead of sliding down the arm. But it rights itself pretty easily, so that's really cool. Going into his wrists, he's got a double ball joint on the wrist. There's one inside and one in the hand. Good amount of flop for his hand. Going into his hips. I'm saying going into a lot here. He's got a ball joint down here inside the thigh, but it does not have a huge range of motion. It can kind of wiggle. It can kind of turn. It gives you enough motion to have him shuffle as Anthony Daniels did. If you watch the movies, Anthony Daniels was actually flexing parts of the costume just trying to walk. So in order to make this a fantastic looking replica of that costume, that meant that the leg joints had to kind of suck. This is going to be a big point of contention for some folks. At the end of the day, I don't mind it because C-3PO is not known for poses that have his legs splayed out or doing karate kicks, but it is something to be aware of going into this guy, that you're going to have to deal with this. And at least there is enough motion in here to tweak his stance, to be like heels together or heels apart, to have that little bit of shuffle, and it's alright given the design intention of the toy. His knees are more solid, with really stiff ratchets once again that feel and sound fantastic. And the range goes back to about here. I don't want any more range because his hips are already so limited that there would be no point having them do anything else. And his ankles are on ball joints that mostly can tilt forward and then go back to a neutral position. Due to the fact that they tilt forward mostly for that S-curve, I find he's a little bit difficult to balance without a stand. If you get him set up and then you bump him the wrong way, he starts to tilt forward and do that Michael Jackson thing. So bear that in mind. Now, C-3PO has sat before in films, and the way that was done was actually a disassembly of the lower part of the costume and then a building of a seated position part of the costume, like an alternate set of hips around Anthony Daniels after he sat down. I kind of wish that was an option here because the hips actually disengage, and this is intentional. There's a nice big C-clip here, and actually the legs come apart again, like this. And this is a really cool feature because this is meant to replicate what C-3PO looks like when he has been shot. You can pretty much take him apart into a nice round number of components. Getting the arms out is a little bit scary. You kind of have to grip this ridged ring to get them out without damaging the elbow pistons. But once you pull all this stuff apart, get his head off, and you can even pull his hands off if you want. Now you've got a big pile of 3PO. And that's kind of cool. I wish he came with like a cargo net bag to put all this stuff in, a la Empire, but maybe that will come with Chewbacca someday, although my understanding is that 1/6 scale Chewbacca is kind of like the in-joke of this collector community, because it's like probably never going to happen, or if it does, it'll be some time from now. I know it's been announced, but I don't know. I listen to Pre-Order 66, and anything I get wrong, really, it's their fault for not informing me properly. I mean, just, you know what those guys are like. But this feature is really cool, it's really solid, and it adds this one extra layer of fun to this toy that I really enjoy. Between that, the solid, heavy die-cast metal construction, and the little light-up eyes, those three things form the trinity of features that make me feel like this truly is like a well-done, kind of fun, high-end 12-inch tall C-3PO. So, I'm kind of impressed with him. Even though his posability is not fantastic, it is not fantastic on a character that can get away with it with a design intention and that can cover for it. So, we've seen how he poses, we've seen how he comes apart, now let's see how he displays. 12PM C-3PO comes with a display stand modeled after the corridor of the Tantive 4 from the opening of A New Hope. The arm is solid metal, and the clip uses a detented snap closure to avoid the finicky futzing of trying to get it squeezed around 3PO's waist just right. This also means there's way less potential stress on the belly cables, though if you start yanking them out of there without opening the clip up again, you might rip one out. So be careful. The 12-inch Perfect Model C-3PO retails for around $350 in Japan, give or take the mood of the yen, a little bit less on some of the Japanese sites like HLJ or AmiAmi, while Sideshow's selling it themselves in North America for a straight $399.99. This figure's definitely marketed towards Star Wars fanatics and 6-scale hardcores, whose Venn diagrams merge to form a surprisingly large market among the higher end of toy buyers. It's a heavy pill to swallow, but 12PM 3PO pushes really hard to fill out that cost. The immaculate attention to detail is a major factor, and a massive amount of well-made and finely finished die-cast metal goes a long way to justifying its price. The lack of hip mobility is understandable, but does impact the bang for your buck of this piece, though it does make up for some of that by featuring the first ever working elbow hydraulics on a C-3PO collectible. The light-up eyes are also quite a cherry on top. And hey, you can pull them apart. It's fun. If you aren't into Star Wars, this guy is not anywhere near your wheelhouse. But enthusiasts of either 6-scale, Star Wars, or both combined will definitely need to consider budgeting for this guy. If your high-end shelf is themed more towards the Empire, or Stormtroopers, or anything else that wouldn't fit a 3PO, that is a nice way to convince yourself to skip this dude. Also, while a 12PM R2-D2 has been seen on display at shows, there is no information as to its actual release yet. It may rely on good sales of C-3PO to even come out. But I'm saying all this as great excuses to not drop over $300 on a toy. If you are on the fence and able to afford this guy, he's a beautiful piece of high-end toy gold, and likely the greatest C-3PO figure to be released in the foreseeable future. You might have a bit of apprehension about the price tag, but if you're already into these kind of items, it'll all be worth it for that moment of lifting 2 pounds of toy out of its styrofoam container. Let a couple of Clone Trooper variants pass by and pick this up. Bandai's involvement resulted in a true centerpiece, and yet another reminder that the Chogokin name knows how die-cast works. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and until the Metropolis Maschinenmensch gets a similar figure of this caliber, I'm alright with her foppier soul sibling filling in for now.